When Leah moved into her new apartment, all she wanted was peace and quiet. But every night at 3:04 a.m., she heard whispers through the wall, whispers that knew her name. Everyone told her 4B was empty, but what she found behind that door, it wasn't just a secret, it was a trap. By the time she realized the truth, it was already too late. Stay with this story, because what's hiding in apartment 4B will haunt you long after it's over. Leah Monroe wasn't the adventurous type. She wasn't reckless or bold. She was quiet, kept to herself, and preferred the company of books over people. After losing her job in the city, she found a tiny apartment in an aging building on the edge of downtown, Unit 4C. It was cheap, quiet, and felt like the fresh start she desperately needed. The building was old, not charming old, but wary old. The kind of place with yellowed wallpaper, carpet that never quite stopped smelling like mildew, and flickering hallway lights that buzzed at night. But Leah didn't mind. She liked quiet. The landlord, a frail man named Mr. Klein, handed her the key without ceremony. His fingers trembled as he pointed down the hallway. 4th floor, end of the hall. Try not to bother the neighbors, he said. And don't worry about 4B. Been empty for a long time. Leah noticed the way he looked at the door next to hers, not with annoyance, but with something else, like fear. But she didn't ask questions. She had enough on her plate. The first few nights were uneventful, just the usual creaks and groans from an old building settling into itself. Then, sometime around her 5th night, Leah heard voices, faint at first, muffled, as if someone were talking through the wall between her apartment and 4B. She pressed her ear against the wall. Laughter, whispers, the soft clinking of a teacup, but apartment 4B was supposed to be vacant. The next night, the whispers returned louder this time, more distinct. She could hear a woman crying, and someone else, a man maybe, murmuring low words in response. At exactly 3:04 a.m., the voices stopped. The silence was worse than the sounds. Leah asked the elderly couple in 4A about the unit next door. The wife hesitated before answering. No. One lives in 4B, she said softly. Not since that girl disappeared. Dina Foster. Poor thing. What happened to her? Leah asked. They say she ran away. But the walls around here remember. That's why no one rents 4B. Strange things. Noises. People hearing their own names. The woman paused. You should move, dear, before it remembers you too. Leah became obsessed with the voices. She tried recording them with her phone, but every playback returned nothing but static, until one night, a whisper cut through the noise. Leah, help me. That same night, she had a dream. A girl, bruised and terrified, stood in the hallway outside 4B, banging on the door, screaming to be let out. When Leah woke up, her sheets were soaked in sweat. What was wrong with apartment 4B? The next day, while Mr. Klein was out, Leah used a hairpin to unlock the door. The lock gave way with a click. Inside, the air was thick and stale. Dust blanketed every surface. The entire apartment looked untouched for decades, furniture still in place. Dishes in the sink, even a teacup resting on a side table, dried and cracked. On the wall, a calendar hung crookedly. The year was 1993. One date had been circled. In red ink, August 14th, the exact day Leah had moved in. In the bedroom, she noticed a warped floorboard beneath the rug. She pried it up and found a tattered leather-bound journal. Inside were short entries, most of them detailing strange noises, nightmares, and someone locking the door from the outside. It belonged to Dina Foster. The final page read, he said, I can't leave, that the walls are too thin. That eventually I'll belong to the apartment too. Leah stumbled out of 4B, locked the door behind her, and didn't sleep that night. The next morning, her door number 4C had been scratched, just faintly as if something was trying to change it. Things spiraled fast after that. The voices came every night now. It's not just whispers, screams, pleading, and laughter. Mocking, cruel laughter. Leah started seeing things in mirrors, flashes, of a bruised girl staring back at her, only to vanish when she looked again. Her apartment grew colder, even in August. Her lights flickered, and always, the clock stopped at 3:04 a.m. She tried to leave, but the front door wouldn't open. Her phone screen went black. Her emails disappeared. It was as if she had never existed outside these walls. The single mother in 4D came to her. Shaking, "My daughter said she was talking to someone through the wall," she whispered. "She said her name was Dina. She said she was trapped." Leah's skin crawled. She returned to Mr. Klein. Demanding answers, the old man's hands trembled. "You're not in for C," he finally confessed. "I gave you the key to for C, but that apartment, it takes people, rearranges things. You're in for B now." Leah rushed back to her apartment. The door said for C, but as she stared, the numbers glitched, almost like static. For C, for B, for C. And then they disappeared. The walls around her began to pulse faintly, out like a heartbeat. The apartment had changed her reality. It didn't want her to leave. It wanted her to stay. That night, Leah sat alone in her dark apartment, staring at the wall. At exactly 3:04 a.m., whispering returned, soft, sad, and familiar. "Leah, remember?" And this time, she did. Memories flooded back. But they weren't Leah's. They were Dina's. The bruises. The man with the cold hands and the locked door. The nights spent screaming through the wall, hoping someone would hear. The promises that no one ever would. Mr. Klein hadn't been the landlord. He had been Dina's captor. The apartment hadn't been haunted. It had been her prison. And now, it was Leah's too. She rushed to the mirror, hoping to see her own face. But what stared back at her was Dina's reflection, tear-streaked, eyes hollow, mouth stitched shut in terror. The whispers around her grew louder. Not just one voice, hundreds. Women, girls, all of them crying out. All of them trapped behind the walls. Leah realized the apartment had fed off Dina's pain for decades, and now it had new memories to feed from. The number on the door never came back. No, I never saw Leah Monroe again. When Mr. Klein was asked about her, he simply said she must have moved out. But the tenants started hearing a new voice behind the walls. Every night, at 3:04 a.m.,